Hey yo, how goes it? um, so I want to talk about perspective. I just don't know how I want to approach it. Um, so I'm gonna shoot from the hip and hope it goes well. Anywho, yeah. Well, okay. So I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, can agree that there are two sides to anything, right? But in perspective, there's two perspectives in anything, literally. Um, and so I'm bringing it up because I kind of mentioned it briefly in my last video, and I just said, hey, why not talk about it? I've talked about it before. I believe that in many ways, the life that we ultimately end up living or in, what have you, in many ways, not every way, but in many ways, has to do with our perspective in our experiences from the past and from the present and so forth. So, to make it simple, let's just say there's two general perspectives, a positive and a negative, right? We all know people who are very pessimistic, very negative, have a perspective on life that's just down, a downer, whatever, what have you. And we all also know people who are very optimistic, very positive, have a perspective on life that is very up and positive. Cool. Well, I'll start with this. Okay, so first, I would argue that the way in which we establish, let's say, or train, you could say, our perspective, obviously part of that has to do with our experiences and influences from other people, variables, or what have you within our life, right? Okay, cool. I would make the argument that some people, regardless, again, I mean, there's always going to be an influence that's exterior to us, always. That's just a no-brainer. You can't argue that. But I would say that there are some people who are just more capable, let's say, of being able to, whether it be maintain or establish, what have you, a positive perspective, right? And then the same can be said on the other side. I mean, not more, but there are people who are more prone or able, I guess, to be looking at a very negative or non-positive, regardless of exterior factors. Again, exterior factors will always play into that, but I'm saying I believe that there are certain people who are more capable of being more positive and negative, even if they were in a very negative and horrible circumstance from their upbringing, let's say, and vice versa. There are people who are just more capable or prone to being negative, even if they were brought up in a very positive and good environment, what have you, right? Okay, cool. So, nonetheless, our perspective is something that we can, I suppose a good word would be train or develop in a way that is gonna best serve us. And so, one thing I will never agree with is, and I don't want to believe there are many people who think this way, but I'm sure there are some. Regardless, I can never agree with the idea that being positive is pointless, being optimistic is pointless, And so being pessimistic and negative is just a better way or easier way, let's say, to go about living life. It's like, no. Again, here's the thing. I can understand it. I can understand a pessimistic point of view or a pessimistic person or what have you, because it stems from something, right? None of us are born one or the other. It's just we're more prone towards one or the other, and so based on life circumstances and so forth, right? But you know, oftentimes I can understand why one might be that way, whether it be positive or negative. Cool. But if ever an argument is attempted to be made that being negative is better than being positive is pointless, or anything along those lines, no. um, you know, it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to go into all the, like, obviously there's many reasons why that wouldn't make sense, and I'm sure you can argue many reasons why it would make sense, whatever. But here's the thing that I think is probably why a lot of people, not a lot, but why some people might feel that way. Because let's just say you are naturally a pessimistic type person. And then let's just say that you're told and you've seen that, you know, being optimistic can be good for you, right? And then you attempt to do that. Okay. There's two things. One, again, that is something you need to train and develop. And that takes time. It doesn't just happen. And also, that is not something that you can fake. Because I have met in my life and seen and what have you, and I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have a person who is very happy, always smiling, very, you know, this and that and this. I've had people in my life who are like that, and that I knew 100% are not actually that. They are actually very sad and depressed and have a lot of, you know, struggles, as many of us do. Or two, people that you know, I don't personally know that, oh, why this person's struggling, but is very optimistic and positive, but just they give off something about them, gives off a vibe of like, this is fake. Your positivity and high energy and all that feels something. There's a hidden, something's not all there in that, right? Okay, fine. I don't think that's. I don't think if someone is attempting to train or you know, accustom themselves to being a positive type person, and that's how you're gonna go about it. It seems, I would say, that may not be the best way to go about it. Now, what would be the best way to go about it then? Very difficult question to answer. Okay, cool. I would say maybe an answer might be accepting, yeah, I mean, accepting in that the fact that there is a negative view to any experience that's not obviously outright positive, right? Accepting that there's always going to be that. That's how it is. But I think maybe a better way of accustoming yourself or training yourself to be more optimistic, positive, what have you, instead of just faking it till you make it, which I don't like that saying, but whatever. I understand why people say it and whatnot. I'm just not a personal big fan of it. So instead of faking it till you make it, I think it's a matter of like literally just finding the positive in the negative, let's say. Okay, so let me okay. Again, I said some of us are more prone to be more positive than negative and vice versa, right? I would say that I am an individual who I'm just more prone towards optimism and being positive and those things, right? I would say that's a blessing. Awesome. Now, regardless of that, here's here's how it's played out for me. I'm gonna try to word what I'm thinking right now. um, so mind you, let me clarify. I have not yet had like significant tribulation in my life. I've had tribulation, but not like significant. Like, for example, I have yet to really experience the death of somebody that I truly, truly love. I have yet to experience that. God bless. But I know the time will come. And when that time comes, I'll be able to more concretely or confidently, let's say, express these words I'm about to express right now. But whatever. For now, I'm working with what I've got. But one of the big, not the big, but one of the main tribulations I've had in my life, as many of us have, is the experiences of heartbreaks, right? Relationships, things like that. I mean, usually most of us start that, some of us in elementary school. Definitely most of us by middle school, and by high school, almost all of us, right? Okay, cool. Again, I've had a lot of, I've always been a very social person, so I've had a lot of perspectives and such in my life, and people tend to come to me, particularly with relationship advice or something. Well, I know. Anyway, people tend to come to me with their relationship problems and so forth, and so I see a lot of perspectives, and again, I have my own personal ones, right? Okay, well, here's the point I'm getting at. With my own personal ones, the experience happens. So the experience starts positive, right? You're in love, you feel something of joy, whatever, the cupcake phase, all of that jazz. All right, cool. At some point, shit hits the fan, right? Okay, things go south, and sometimes it's right away, sometimes it's extended for a long period of time, what have you, doesn't matter. But it's painful, it ain't fun, it's a struggle, right? Okay, cool. When you're in that struggle, it's very difficult to be optimistic and positive. Like, I don't think any of us can naturally just be like, I'm going through a struggle, I'm so happy. No, that's just not how we work as human beings. That's not, like, and never will I state that that's what we should do. No. Go through the struggle. That's a part of life. Accept it, right? So go through it. Try to avoid it as best you can, but understand that sometimes it's just unavoidable, right? And if you think the solution is never being in a relationship, well, do you, boo-boo. Good luck with that, right? Okay, but you're going to go through it. Okay, fine. But here's the deal. Once it's over, or as you're getting over it, right? Maybe you're still going through it, but you've already gone through it for a good bit. I said being able to find the positive in the negative, right? So that's something that I've been pretty good at, as far as I can tell, most of my life, if not all of my life. So whenever I go through, for example, a heartbreak or what have you, again, that's a very specific. There's many different other tribulations too that I can reference, but just to use one that all of us can relate to for the most part. At the end of the day, the negative is going to be there. The struggle is going to be there. The hardship, the tears, the loneliness, all of that not good stuff is gonna be there. But I, thankfully, am able to look at the positive as well, right? So what might that look like? For example, through that struggle, maybe there are certain individuals that came into light that showed you that they are people who are good to maintain in your life and who wish to be a part of your life. That might be an example of that. Okay, there's an example. What else? Well, let's see. Like, after the tribulation, you now, for example, again, there's many different angles you can go at it, but now you understand that there are certain people who have certain flaws and maybe utilize those flaws in such a way that is not good. And now you are just more aware of these things, right? You're more capable, let's say, of noticing it. Okay, cool. That's another. But I can keep going, but here's the thing though. So I think, again, part of this also has to do with our conscience, I would say. Like being able, while going through difficulties, being able to consciously pay attention to the positive, right? Again, if you're already a naturally negative, pessimistic person, it's going to be easier said than done. I get that, right? Doesn't mean it's impossible. And it would be easier if you were around optimistic people and not get annoyed by them. Now, mind you, some of them are annoying. Yeah, just speaking from the truth. But nonetheless, there's always value that you can get from people like that, and vice versa. There's certain values you can get from certain type of pessimistic, negative people. Again, certain. I don't. Whatever. That's a different conversation for a different day. But here's the point, though. While going through any kind of tribulation, maybe not right in the midst of it, right? But at some points during it, or maybe towards the end of it, doesn't matter when. But if you want to work on being more optimistic and positive, which again, I do believe that you're gonna live a much better life being more optimistic and positive than you would being pessimistic and negative, right? And if you disagree with that, hey, run that up with your life and good luck to you. But and again, like, just thinking to yourself, like, what am I able to gain from this experience? Like just ask that question. Like, ask that question. And the answer may not come right away. It may take a long time before it comes. It may not be until a year or two later that something else happens in your life and you look back at that tragedy that you experienced and you go, oh, well, look at that. Huh. You know what I mean? Like, that's happened to me before. But I'm just saying, maybe that's what I'm getting at, is being able to ask that question. Like, what good or what positive or what value am I able to gain from this tragic, difficult, whatever the case may be experience, right? Because there always is. Always. And like, I understand, I do, that there are some experiences that are truly just horrendous. I understand that. But here's what I also understand from just observation and history. There are people in this world who, again, have gone through tragic, horrendous, horrible tribulations in their life, who either, one, come out of that worse off, and maybe even make everything else worse, right? They become evil, dark, cold, just not good people. Okay, but again, there's always two sides. I also understand from, learning about other people and history and such, that there are people who similarly horrible, horrendous, indescribable experiences that come out of it much better individuals. Not come out of it not hating everything, not dwelling in the pain and the memories of it, so forth, but instead you taking it, accepting it, and being able to understand or find the positive from it and go off to become amazing potential people. Like, an example would be, like, for example, Frederick Douglass, right? He was a slave. He bought his freedom, I think, like 2 or 3 times, and he went on to become one of the most influential emancipators of his time and influenced many, many more. Like, that's one of the examples. There's many more, but again, you can always say, I get it. As one can make the argument, like I am, that when you go through suffering and tribulation, you can look at the positive and become better. Again, you can always also make the argument that you can look at the negative and just be rightfully entitled to that way of being through your experiences, right? Fine. Fine. It's hard for me to argue that. Truly. Right? But first, your life is not going to be better because of that at all. It won't. And if you think it will, again, run that up, see how it goes. Right? Second of all, you will not make anybody else's life better. Even the people you care for and love, assuming you have that, which hopefully you do, you won't, if that's the route you choose to take. And maybe that's what you want, right? Maybe some people just have fallen so deep into the depth of despair that seeing the world burn potentially would be satisfying. I'll just, here's what I'll wrap it up with. The sooner you start attempting to be more positive and optimistic, and the more you work on it, again, simply by, let's say, just asking the question every time you're going through it, what value can I gain from this? I would say the better off you'll be. You'll find a point to where you'll be able to be happy with, or at least just find peace to some extent with whatever it is that happened to you. And then again, with that, because you got to remember, humans, if you want to be happy in life, you would want to obviously attract people who are happy in life. Very difficult to do when you are the opposite of that. Happy people do not tend to go towards negative people, and vice versa, right? So that's why I'm saying I think it's I can never agree with that thought that being negative is better for you. It won't work. You're just gonna dig yourself a horrible pit of despair, And so again, just my argument here is all of us should, for the sake of ourselves and for others, work on our just work on ourselves in terms of being able to do that, of seeing the positive in the things that we experience, or seeing the value in whatever which way we can. Again, sometimes it's easier said than done, but ultimately at the end of the day, my argument is working on that, towards that, and hopefully being able to grasp that, like finally getting to that point where truly you are at peace or happy with, or more optimistic and what have you with your life, and whatever which way that might be, is always just going to be a better solution for you and for others than dwelling in despair and thinking that that's the way to go. So yeah, that's that. I hope that resonated with somebody, and that it made sense, and that it was valuable. And just keep asking the question, what value is there in this experience that I'm going through or have gone through? Anyways, take care. God bless.